this morning, ESPN put out a series of tweets that have absolutely nothing to do with sports at all. It began with ESPN believes in inclusivity and denounces legislation and actions across the United States that infringe on any human rights. We stand with our LGBTQIA+. I can't even keep up with all the letters now in this thing. Colleagues, friends, families, and fans. And then they put out a long series of stories, which are frankly, utterly absurd and have nothing at all to do with sports. And I hate to say I told you so, but this is what I have been telling you was the story with ESPN for a long time, okay? And people say, oh, Clay, you used to not talk about politics very often. Why did you decide to talk about politics? Because the ESPNs of the world made sports so inherently political that I had two options. Okay, I want you to think about this. Option one, pretend none of it existed. And I understand some of you would have preferred that I took that choice, right? Maybe I have three options. One option is pretend that none of it exists, okay? So when Colin Kaepernick takes a knee and says America is an awful racist country, I could have just sat back and said, you know what? I'm going to pretend this isn't happening. I like football so much. I enjoy watching NFL games so much. I don't even care that Colin Kaepernick is lying and that he's being lionized based on those lies. I'm not even going to address Colin Kaepernick at all. And there are certainly people in the world of sports who have just pretended that the Colin Kaepernick story never existed, okay? That was one option. Another option was to say, I'm done with this. I'm so sick of how political sports have become that I am just going to turn them off. And I get people all the time in my mentions like, why do you watch that? Why do you care about watching the NBA or the NFL or any other sport? All the athletes are woke. All the media that cover it are woke. Find something else to do. And I understand that argument, and some of you made that choice. Third option is fight for what I believe in and don't turn my back on the world of sports. That's what I've chosen to do. Now, you can disagree with me. You can say, you should have just pretended none of this was happening. Stick to sports. Don't talk about any of the issues. Pretend that the NBA players don't have political slogans on their back. Pretend that Colin Kaepernick isn't taking a knee. Every time one of these sports athletes or a coach or a league issues some sort of woke statement, just pretend it didn't exist. That's not me, okay? I'm not personally the kind of person who, when I see something that I disagree with, just pretends it doesn't exist. Some of you are. That's fine. That's your right. Second one, just turn it off. Leave sports behind completely and say, I hate these guys and these leagues and what they've turned into a political world. Third option's the one I've chosen. It is to push back against the woke sports universe and argue for sports as a world where we can all come together regardless of what differences we have without embracing the necessity of every political argument. I just don't care, right? The truth of the matter is this. If there's a really good quarterback on a team that I like, I would prefer to never know what his political opinion is. I just don't care. I don't care if he voted for Trump. I don't care if he voted for Hillary. I don't care if he's a Bernie bro. I don't care if he's a huge right-wing supporter. I just don't care. I care about whether or not you are good at the sport itself. Left wing, right wing, independent, no wing, whatever it is, be good at sports. And I think that's where the vast majority of sports fans are. But when you are, I believe, embracing such woke sports like ESPN is right now, that you are destroying the fabric of sports itself in the competitive nature of the game itself. ESPN has virtually pretended that this whole Penn transgender swimmer story doesn't exist. It threatens the very foundation of women's athletics. But because it calls into question woke sports, because you have to say, hey, I don't think that men should be able to compete against women, something that the vast majority of the American sports fan believes, ESPN pretends that story doesn't exist. And instead, they create an artificial dynamic where they're saying, the Florida bill, which deals with kindergarten, first, second, and third graders not being taught about sexuality, in some way is anti-gay. It's not. It's not in there. The Don't Say Gay bill does not ban the discussion of being gay. It just says kindergarten through third graders, maybe that isn't the right place to be discussing sexuality. And by the way, who are the parents of kindergarten, first, second, or third graders who believe it is the place to be discussing sexuality at that age with kids of those ages? I just don't get it, okay? It's nonsensical to me. So ESPN has made their choice. They are MSESPN. They have gone so far left-wing that they have left behind everybody. And look, when they had a moment of silence during the women's basketball tournament to protest this Florida bill, that this is not even something that impacts athletics at all. And this is the natural extension of so far embracing woke politics that you are isolating everybody who is not a woke imbecile. All right? That's the truth. And there are many people at ESPN. I would even argue the vast majority of ESPN employees right now, many of whom are watching this right now, that think it's outrageous that a man is competing against women in sports. And that ESPN isn't covering that and is trying to argue that somehow a Florida bill that primarily focuses on kindergarten, first, second, and third grade instruction in schools is anti-gay and that they have to take a stance against it as a corporation. Look, I am so glad that we have Outkick, and we're going to be continuing to expand, and we are going to be the anti-woke antidote for the vast majority of American sports fans out there who want rationality, who want sanity, who want sports without being lectured to from a political perspective. You don't have to agree with me on anything. That's not my concern. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think, and I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life, and that ESPN, due to their embrace of woke politics, is destroying that unity. And I believe that Outkick can speak to the 85 or 90% of sports fans, while there's a knife fight for those 10% of woke sports fans from ESPN. We're going to speak to everybody else.